Hey everybody, Dr. Terri Deny here. Today we are going to talk about seed oils. What are they? What are they in? Are they good for us? I thought they were good for us. No, wait, they're bad for us. There's a lot of confusion about these little things that are creating so much inflammation in our body. And I have a special guest today, Elizabeth DiMeo. She's a highly respected clinical nutritionist with over 25 years of experience in the health and wellness industry. She's a recognized leader in integrative medicine. She combines her expertise in clinical nutrition with a deep understanding of nutraceuticals to empower healthcare practitioners and patients. She joined Evexias Health Solutions this year in 2024 as Director of Education, while also serving as a clinical expert for the organizations. Join us in the conversation today as we talk about seed oils. Okay, so we're hearing all this talk in the social media world and just, about these seed oils and what, that they're kind of bad, but why are they bad? Because probably in the 80s or we thought they were good or we were told they were good. So first, just what is a seed oil in the first place?
So a seed oil or a vegetable oil would be something coming from a seed, so like a sunflower seed. You have other oils like corn oil, soybean oil, safflower oil, canola oil, which is from a rapeseed. So these seed oils are typically linoleic acids or omega-6 fatty acids. And
now, aren't those good, though?
Well, they are. And it's interesting that you say that because I think when people talk about seed oils, they actually don't define the fact that we need them. So your cells rely on omega-6s and omega-3 fats like coming from salmon and sardines, and they want some of those seed oils. But the problem is the way we're getting them in an industrialized way. So they've been manufactured, they've been extracted, and they have chemicals like petroleum-based hexane that's been used. Ultra-processed. They get rid of the odor, they get rid of the color, and they make them look natural. And unfortunately, what they've done is, or at least the overconsumption of them, because if you're getting 5+ tablespoons a day of these seed oils in overprocessed foods, that would be the equivalent of eating 2,300 sunflower seeds.
Yikes.
And nobody's going to sit down.
Right.
Not even a bird would eat that, choke and die. But the point is that we are, unfortunately, because of this, gaining in our physiology, we're gaining more inflammation from this.
Well, we had a great conversation with Dr. Laval about inflammation, and seed oils are, besides processed sugar and processed sugar and high fructose corn syrup and all that, are a huge, now what we're finding are inflammatory. And it sounds like from what you're saying, with the history of them, probably back in when we used to use canola oil. Remember when canola oil came out in the low-fat craze, and, we've got to lower our cholesterol, and these seed oils are really so great for you. And maybe they were if we were just cooking with a little bit of it, a whole meal, back when I was a kid. But it seems like now it's the primary thing in pretty much every processed food. So is it the consumption of processed foods that have increased this consumption of seed oils that have created all the inflammation? Like if seed oils have good components, what's caused them to be bad decades later? Is it the ultra processedness of it? Like, what is it? Yeah, so in a way, the definition of ultra processed food is something you can't make in your kitchen. So if you are refining these oils so they have no odor, no taste, and they don't harden at room temperature, and technically in this conversation they're not a trans fat because they're just a seed oil, and they're using those to replace saturated fats and to give the ideology that sat fats aren't good for you, replace them with vegetable fats, those are better for you. So saturated fats like butter, cheese, animal foods, the stuff that's a big part of the Mediterranean diet, right? Yeah. And when you take out the butter, you take out
really a healthy food.
Right.
When you replace butter with a industrialized seed or vegetable oil, you've now changed the dynamic. We do need saturated fat. We do need omega-6 fats. We do need omega-3 fats, but it's the ratio. It used to be about 4-to-1 or 1-to-1, 2-to-1, omega-6 to omega-3. It's somewhere between 20-to-1 to 24-to-1 in terms of consumption. And when you see where that consumption is and you quote, talk about UPFs or ultra-processed food, you're talking about your salty, crunchy snack foods. You're talking about shelf-stable bread. You're talking about packaged cookies and cakes and crackers.
Right.
And, we've been told that we want to keep our saturated fat down to improve health, but it's really the opposite.
Right.
Well, it's the opposite. And you're really better off eating the oils that matter: butter, olive oil, ghee, avocado oil, and coconut oil, potentially in moderation, depending on your family history. I mean, if you have a family history of cardiovascular disease, you might not want to be consuming a lot of saturated fat or olive oil, but you certainly don't want to be consuming ultra-processed foods with vegetable fats.
I would imagine.
Right.
Because of the inflammation, because obviously cardiovascular disease, as we know, is a disease of inflammation. People think, it's a disease of high cholesterol, but no, it's actually inflammatory nature. When you have a genetic predisposition for that, these things are worse for you, right? These things can wreak more havoc for you, if you will. So what are some, you gave a couple of, examples. I love where you were going with, what are some examples of ultra processed foods? Well, you started talking about it. And then what's happening, in our bodies, and what scares me the most is for children. I used to be a room or a lunchroom monitor for my youngest daughter, in elementary school. And I finally quit doing it because I was so stressed because every kid's lunch, and no shame to moms. I mean, we're marketed to, right? We're marketed to that these ultra processed foods are healthy. They're fat free. They have 100% vitamin C, RDA of vitamin C, or they're gluten free. Like there's all kinds of ways we're marketed to. But I would walk through the lunchroom and, see, maybe a parent made a nice healthy sandwich with wheat bread, but, then put some goldfish in there or some Cheetos and a Hostess cupcake and, a juice or some, and the healthy stuff was never eaten, but all the things that you would open in packages are eaten. So it's like we've kind of gotten to where we're very, overfed and undernourished, because really these ultra processed foods that you can open in a package are high in seed oils, but they're really very low, if zero, nutritional value. Am I right?
Well, you are, and you touched on a few things. Firstly, jumping very quickly back to cardiovascular disease, the major problem, as you said, is a disease of inflammation, but it's the seed oils and vegetable oils become oxidized. So if you've ever seen copper turn green or butter go rancid or eat a rancid nut, that's actually happening inside the body. And if you don't have enough antioxidants, then you can't really quell that inflammation.
Right.
So then you look at overconsumption. 3,000 plus calories a day is what people are eating in the United States. Yeah. And whether it's seed oils or vegetable oils or sugar, we are displacing nutrition in essence. So we're not getting the right nutrition. We're not getting enough antioxidants. We're not getting enough healthy fats.
And fiber.
And
to
fiber.
Feed the good bacteria in the gut.
And when you look at kids, it's astonishing because back, I was born in 1964. Back in the day, you ate a cupcake, or you ate a ring ding, or you ate, something once a month, and it didn't have a devil dog.
A devil dog.
I can't believe you never heard of a devil dog.
Northeast thing? I don't know.
It's the Northeast
We're
thing.
in the South. It
was pretty soft and moist. We'd have one once in a while, but it didn't have, say it had palm oil in it, or say it had coconut oil in it.
But you just hit on something. We had it once in a while.
We had it once in a while. And say it had sugar in it, but it had palm oil and sugar. It didn't have trans fats and high fructose corn syrup. And the funny thing is, so just to sort of talk a little bit about trans fats, trans fats are largely vegetable oils that have been chemically altered to be solid at room temperature.
Okay.
And when the whole idea of vegetable fats came into the lexicon, if you will, people started replacing those vegetable fats with saturated fats with vegetable fats. So butter instead of vegetable fats. Like, let's get rid of the butter because that's bad for you.
And we added
margarine.
Okay.
And back in the day when margarine was first invented by the French, it was beef tallow and olive oil.
Which is good.
Yeah. What we're doing is taking vegetable fats, making them solid, and telling people it's okay to layer that on your toast. But then you take your toast and you've got trans fats or seed oils or vegetable oils. It could be all of them because not all vegetable oils are trans fats. Not all seed oils are trans fats.
Right.
And you're smearing that on your bread, which might have at least somewhere between 0.5 to 1 gram.
Right.
But in 2018, in the United States, they banned trans fats unless there was a scientific definition that you could say this product needs this fat, and then they created what's called a 0.5 rule, that if the product only had 0.5 grams of trans fats, then you didn't even have to list it on the label. So if you bought a loaf of bread, which isn't even bread, it shouldn't be called bread, soft, squishy stuff that doesn't have a crust, that doesn't even recognize itself as bread, using, probably glyphosate sprayed wheat, you're smearing your margarine on that bread. You're probably getting 2 grams of trans fats on the bread, 4 to 6 grams of trans fats from the margarine,
right,
or the solid fat, and now you've consumed close to 6 to 8 grams of fat that is unnatural to the body.
Right, and the body has to do something with that. And it can't.
Really,
right?
It doesn't recognize it.
Right.
Increases LDL, lowers HDL, causes inflammation in the brain, inflammation in the gut, inflammation in the vasculature, and then we're wondering why people aren't well. People aren't well.
You know what we're wondering also is, and even myself as a clinician, is, probably 20 years ago, type 2 diabetes was called adult onset diabetes. Well, now they don't call it adult onset diabetes. Why? Because now 1 in 8 children is diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. That has everything to do, now we're seeing in the clinical studies, with the high processed food industry, marketing to kids, marketing to parents. I mean, I used to beg my parents when I was a kid for Captain Crunch.
I was just going to say Captain Crunch.
Or Crunch Berries.
Oh, with milk.
I could get some Crunch Berries.
Yes.
That's
funny.
But we never could have that stuff. My dad insisted on, we had Roman meal bread.
Right.
And we had, wheat,
or those milk crackers. Remember the milk crackers that you would break
and stuff, and it was so gross. And all my other friends were getting all this good Crunch Berries and things like that. But you said something too previously that I've noticed a trend and a shift in this country. Of course, there's no regulation on this type of marketing, and now we're seeing that it's, we have all this regulation in the tobacco industry to put warning labels, but we're not really putting a warning label at the vending machine at the kids' school that the sugary drink that they're buying stimulates the same areas of the brain as cocaine does, right? And it's highly addictive. And so this is one of the big problems. So we're seeing, all of these kids eating all this ultra-processed foods, and we're wondering why we're seeing more diabetes. There's more prescriptions written now for antidepressants in children than ever in the history of antidepressants. Why is that? We talked about with Dr. Laval this gut-brain connection. Well, there's a huge connection, and the reason I love having this conversation is not to shame any parents. I mean, I had kids that were. I had a daughter that was a swimmer, and she was a water polo player, and I had the Costco pantry. I had every quick snack because they got to have their carbs and they got to snack all the time. So I did the same thing until I learned something different. But I want to educate people because I know that we want to do the best for our family. We want to, provide the best foods for our family. And a big problem is understanding. We don't understand that these seed oils and these unhealthy fats really are causing issues and changing, the soil in the human body at a very, very young age. Even with now we're seeing formula, baby formula. The number one ingredient in baby formula is high fructose corn syrup and seed oils.
I feel apoplectic from that. I mean, if I could just talk about that, because first of all, you should be nursing. Well, and if you can't nurse, then there are solutions. Well, but it's certainly not that stuff.
You're right. And, we have now, thankfully, in more and more hospitals I see are moving to this. But there are breast milk banks and there's, things like that you can have alternatives for your baby. But it's starting that
so early.
That addiction, really, and that addiction to sugar and that changing the gut microbiome such a young age. We're seeing all of these chronic diseases starting at younger and younger ages. So, one of the things that I, tell my patients, and, it's a pretty simple rule of thumb, but people are going to want, okay, gosh, how do I avoid this stuff? It's intuitive, but, I always tell people, if you can't pick it, pull it, or kill it, don't eat it. Right. If you can't, pick it off a tree, pull it out of the ground, or it's an animal.
Eat food that God made, not man made.
Yeah, exactly. If there's, ingredients on the label that you can't pronounce, it's probably, if it's got more than 3 to 5 ingredients. So just in your world, what advice do you give people that are really trying to make healthy changes for themselves and their families? What are some easy things that they can just do today? People listening are going, wow, I didn't know that this oatmeal bar that's, got all this great nutrition really isn't that nutritious.
TBHQ.
So, yeah.
I mean, you can't live in a bubble, right? So I think as a nutritionist and you're coaching people, you try to, instead of taking everything away, saying, why don't you add these things in? So I would say, first and foremost, and there were so many topics we could discuss around children's diet, around longevity and health in relationship to, you are what you eat, what you put in your mouth. And who coined you are what you eat? A Frenchman back in the 1700s. And he basically said, if you eat starchy, sugary foods, you will grow fat willy-nilly. And that is actually a quote. So I think what we want to do is look at, if you can't pronounce it, don't eat it. If you are going to eat a packaged food, you probably want to try to avoid things that have any kind of seed or vegetable oils. So safflower, sunflower, corn, canola, or rapeseed is what they call it. And canola is rapeseed, what they call it in the UK. So if the first ingredient says sugar or high fructose corn syrup and any one of those oils, it's probably not a good thing. But the problem is, if you're shopping in the inside of the aisles of the grocery store, that's what you're going to be eating. So do you teach people how to shop on the perimeter of the aisle? So go buy your meat, go buy your fish, go buy your vegetables, go buy your fruit. Then start filling in with, butter.
Not margarine.
Not margarine, nuts, regular seeds, real seeds, that when you're eating those seeds, you're getting the fiber, when you're getting the nutrients. We are nutrient deficient in the United States. Shortfall nutrients are vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C, vitamin E. There's shortfall nutrients as far as selenium and magnesium. So it's not just us, it's westernized diet. So it could be the UK, it could be places where they have a lot of this processed food, but the standard American diet, if you're starting a child on that early on, they are going to have a palate change.
That's right.
So the tongue changes and their receptivity to the food changes, which changes their brain. So they're so used to consuming, this is the biggest thing, packaged, processed macaroni and cheese. Probably one of the worst things that you could give a kid, because it's going to stimulate those gluteomorphins and caseomorphins in the brain, which basically is like a drug. So the more mac and cheese you give them, the less they want sardines, the less they want butter, the less they want healthy carrots, broccoli, peas, and healthy food. We have bastardized the food supply so much, and it's driven by dollars. It's not driven by long-term health. And then we use pharmaceuticals to replace the nutrients that we are deficient in.
Right.
So micronutrient deficiencies are driving disease. Then we are replacing good fats. Fat is extremely important for the body.
For the brain.
For the brain. And now we have children depressed and not well and obese and having chronic diseases because parents don't know what to eat or it's convenience or they don't know how to cook. But I would say the top things to do is start with oils, butter, avocado oil, ghee, which is clarified butter used in sort of South Asian cuisines or Indian cuisine, coconut oil, and olive oil.
Yeah.
I primarily
clear
use
your pantry of some of the seed oils.
Get rid of them.
Number
And if you
one.
have any kind of sesame oil that you use to flavor Asian-inspired dishes, that needs to be refrigerated because it goes rancid very quickly.
Interesting.
Olive oil you should be going through. It should be first cold press. It should be single origin. And, Costco actually has a first cold press single origin Italian olive oil that is inexpensive for a large gallon bottle.
Right. Yep.
Okay, it's in plastic. It's not in tin. But look, we can't buy $40 bottle of olive oil and be using that to cook all of our food.
Right.
So I'd say seed oils, I'd say sugar, you want to take it out. I think a lot of parents think it's okay to give your kids Gatorade. It is not.
Right.
I think a lot of parents think it's okay to give your kids any of our sweetened candies.
Right.
It's not. If they want some dark chocolate, they can have it.
Yeah. And again, like I said, when I was a kid and you too, these things were treats, these things that we had, just occasionally. I always laugh. I tell the story about my dad taking me and my brothers to 7-Eleven to get his carton of cigarettes. Because, they were
they
big
menthol?
smokers. Yeah, no, not
Which
menthol.
is even worse.
But we would just beg him, please get us some M&Ms. Get it. So probably, once a month he might come out with a package of M&Ms. We're like, yay. Now you can go to, Office Depot or Staples or any store, and they have all these candy shelves. Where are they? At eye level of the kids that we bring in there. So it's all intentional. There's little changes that we can make. There's so much we can talk about. And I want to talk to you again because there's so many questions people have about supplements. And a lot of people think they can, just eat all the bad stuff and then just take supplements and it all cancels out. So that's a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
Lots of things we can talk about. I really appreciate you being on today, and we will talk again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.